court, and she's got some really, really cool stuff. The mental, like you think of mental toughness, you think, this hard kind of attitude, never say die, never quit kind of, but it's kind of changing now. And people are a lot more enlightened, I guess, with their mental toughness, mindfulness. And so that's what Kalindi, you specialize in, is mindfulness. So I have a couple questions for you. Number one, what the heck is mindfulness? It sounds like I need to just be in the Zen position, cross legs. Is this what I should be doing? Am I doing it right?
Well, it's funny you bring that up, Pete, because that's actually the most common, like if we were going to go through mindfulness or meditation mythbusters, that's the most common thing that you hear, especially coming from, tennis players, athletes. And like I played competitively for years. Like you think you have to go sit for 2 hours, and that can be nice if you want to do it. But really the way that I look at it is, when most of us have heard about muscle memory, but really when we're talking about muscle memory, we're talking about the signals the brain is sending to our muscles. So what we're doing with mindfulness is it's a tool to train the brain and really work on that mind-body connection. If you've ever had that experience of you're in a match and it's like a really big point, maybe it's 5-ball and a breaker, and you get ready to hit a huge forehand down the line for a winner, and then you completely choke. You're super tight. It's like you've got your fists clenched like this. And I don't know, Pete, if you've ever just tried clenching your fists and seeing what that feels like. It's super tight. And it's like we can go through the whole day, the whole match, a whole practice session with this experience of our fists clenched. And from what's happening in a scientific perspective is we're getting into this fight, flight, or freeze response where that like primitive part of our brain called the amygdala is super active and engaged. And it's like, So what we're trying to do with mindfulness is through these different tools and exercises is pause the amygdala and activate our more higher thinking prefrontal cortex that can help us get into that mind-body flow state that, as athletes, we call that the zone. And it's like this magical state. And how do we get there? And no, we don't need to be sitting and meditating for 2 hours a day. It's great if you have the time to do an hour-long sitting practice, but absolutely not necessary. The tools that I like to look at are things that you can integrate into your daily routines, into your practices, and into your matches.
Very, very cool. I think things have changed. Everybody wants to be mentally tough, and it sounds like a lot of work to be mentally tough. I just want to point out we have some people on here. We got Jamie says hello, Brad says hello, Ed says hello. And as we get through this, tell us, people, viewers out there, what are some things you struggle with when it comes to matches? Do you start to feel tight like Kalindi was talking about? Do you have trouble breathing at times? Are you afraid to hit out on the ball because you just don't trust your shot? Are these things that you feel? I know I've certainly felt a lot of this. I used to have so many nervous rituals. I used to go to the restroom, like when I was a junior, I would go to the restroom maybe like 30 times before I'd even play. For whatever reason, one of my biggest fears was I would be on the court and I would feel like I had to go to the restroom or something. So I wanted to make sure that didn't happen. Like a lot of just nervous energy. So Kalindi, when you started out playing, did you experience any of these crazy like rituals and habits that were such nervous energy that probably were not the best thing for you? Did you feel that? One guy, Jamie says, I panic anytime I get down 0-3. So you played tennis your whole life. You're brought up on the tennis court, I'm sure, by your dad. What were some things that you experienced as a player, and how would mindfulness help us from not going through this? Or is this something is this part of it and we have to accept and make the best of?
So the answer to that is it's both. And yes, I've definitely experienced that. I was laughing because, Pete, when you were mentioning your bathroom habits, I actually did a similar thing on the court. It was literally compulsive. Like the minute before getting on the match, I had to go to the bathroom just in case, And from the panicking, the reason I got into learning about mindfulness and starting to implement some of these practices into my life on and off the court is just because I've struggled with anxiety. I choked in a lot of matches. Like, it's hard. The first thing to it, there's no like magic cure where it's like you're going to do this exercise and then you're never going to feel nervous again. I mean, even you talk to Roger Federer and he talks about, yeah, I feel nervous before the finals of Wimbledon. It's good that I'm nervous. Like, that means that I care. So the basic definition of mindfulness is just being aware of what's happening right now in your mind and body in the present moment, and being aware with a non-judgmental attitude. So usually what happens is we get to that love 3 down and we start to panic. And then before we know it, we've choked the whole match away because we got into that fight or flight freeze state. We've got our fists clenched the whole time. Chances are our breathing has become really shallow. When you think about being panicked, there's not those slow, deep exhales followed by easy, long inhales. And so what's happening is that we've lost awareness. If we can get better at noticing like that initial state, okay, I'm down love 3, I'm starting to notice that I'm feeling panicked. Now what can I do about it? Maybe I can start to take a few even deep breaths, just slowing the breathing down, exhaling to a count of 6, inhaling to a count of 4, trying that a few times. It's amazing. I mean, if you just try a simple exercise of clenching your fists and then the next minute just clench it really hard, exactly like that. And then try and take slow, even breaths at the same time. Yeah, it's like really hard because you're like literally holding your breath. And then now let go of your fists and just exhale.
That feels good.
Easy inhale. And I mean, if we're really taking it to the next level, and this is why I feel like a lot of people look at the mind in isolation from the body. And to me, mindfulness, it's about the mind-body connection. Because if you have your fists clenched and you're not breathing well and you're getting panicked because you're down in the match or whatever might be stressing you, you're not going to be able to hit relaxed and hit with power. You can't because you're tight. So it's about finding ways to relax. And if you can notice, okay, yeah, I feel myself starting to tighten up. I feel myself starting to clench my fists, and notice it not in I'm beating myself up. Like, how could I be doing this type of way? You can notice when you're down love 3, okay, what can I do now? Like, a great acronym that I like to implement throughout my day and during matches is called SCORE. It's easy to remember as tennis players because we're always asking, hey, what's the score? And SCORE stands for stop. So that's the first thing. We're trying to stop or pause that amygdala from getting into that reactive fight or flight mode. And then we stop, we connect. So connecting to something like an anchor, like the breath, or a tennis ball is a great anchor because it's very concrete and you can just hold it in your hands and notice, what does that tennis ball feel like? Or even I've got all my props here, holding your racket and just noticing what the grip feels like, noticing what your feet feel like in your shoes. And then observing what thoughts are going on in your mind, what emotions, what physical sensations. A lot of times the physical sensations of feeling tight or choking and being all panicked, it all started from one thought. Probably you thought, oh no, what am I going to do? I'm down love 3. And that elicited an emotion and that elicited a physical sensation. The more you can start to be aware of what's going on, the more you can implement things to change that. So the final part of SCORE is you can choose how to respond, which might be by changing your self-talk, reframing something negative that you're telling yourself, whatever strategies might be helpful. I'm a big proponent of positive affirmations and positive self-talk and reframing. A mentor of mine, Pete, I don't know if you've heard of Bob Litwin, who wrote the book Living the Best Story of Your Life. I mean, he's a genius. He's won multiple gold balls in all these different divisions. And he talks about reframing your story. So we all have these stories going on through our heads. And it might be I always lose tiebreakers. I always double fault when I'm, down love 40. And they might be subconscious. So it can take really digging through and even writing down what are all the stories you're currently telling yourself that might be holding you back in your game, and then taking that and rewriting it. So, if you have the story that's I always choke on my forehand in big points, you might say, well, how do you want to be? Like, I get excited about the opportunity to breathe and relax and flow into my forehand on big points. My forehand is an amazing, powerful weapon. And then you can print that out, put it on your bathroom mirror. What I used to do in tournaments a lot was I would print out this like laminated sheet of paper, and I'd have my story written or typed out on it, and I'd tie it to my like big water jug. I grew up playing in Texas summer heat, so you had these giant water jugs. Whatever works for you, you want to review it often, and it starts to become ingrained into your personality and into your mentality.
Very, very cool. I like that. We've got a lot of people who have, I think there's a good place to, a confessional, if you will. So we got like a confessional. So I want to read some of these. And the cool thing is everybody who's on this call, I think, can relate to one another as tennis players. I think this is a safe space to where we all know what it feels like to be nervous, even though we all want to act like we're, the tough guy, the tough woman. This is very, very normal. So Andrew says his strokes shorten up, especially the follow through. So that's being tight. William says lack of confidence in overheads. That could be a very nerve-wracking thing because you're watching that ball and you got to time it just perfectly and you got to go for it. If you're a little off, you're going to miss in the net or out. I had my knees shaking while serving, holding back to be sure. One person said, when I serve, I revert back to a beginner. And Brad says, agree, Ed. So we all know what this feels like. Tennis Files on with us, and he says that we're on and live. We're going live. He feels like I cheat on him. No, Marathon, I would never cheat on you. Anyway, so this is all super important stuff that we all feel, and I think the difference between, if I'm getting this right, Kalindi, and you can let me know if I'm wrong, the difference between like developing a stroke and this mindfulness in most people's mind is like, we understand that to develop a nice forehand or a nice serve, it's going to take work. It's going out there with buckets of balls. It's trial and error. It's going to the court and taking a private lesson with an instructor who's an expert. And then when it comes to being mindful or someone that people view as somebody who's mentally tough, we're more looking for a magic bullet. We're more looking for like, can someone just tell me something that's going to make me feel like a lion on the court? Can I just watch a video and learn all the secrets on how to be mentally tough? Because it's not something motor skills wise, at least in your mind, that you think you need to work on. It's more just like, I just need someone to shake me and make me mentally tough, or tell me, some magic potion I could drink and become mentally tough. But unfortunately, what we're trying to teach you today is you're not going to watch today's video and walk away and be Rafael Nadal. You've got to work on this just like you're working on your serve, your forehand, your fitness. Am I right? Or can you actually, is there a magic potion I could drink right now and become an animal on the court? Does that exist?
I mean, I wish. If you discover that, Pete, feel free to let me know, and then it'll be much easier for me to tell people how to get more mindful. I mean, the thing is, like, and I'm sure if like we had, Rafa Nadal on our call right now, and we asked him, Rafa, did you ever just have a potion that you took, and is it easy now to be mentally strong? Like, the thing is, you keep working at it, and it does get easier over time because it's the whole muscle memory thing. So we're just training those repeated patterns in our brain. So that's why the whole idea of practice doesn't make perfect, but we're working. It's about getting those motor muscle, neuromuscular, memories going on that we're able to, the next time, if you're practicing, like if someone, the first thing when someone asks me like, hey, how do I get started with, with mindfulness to get mentally strong, but I don't have time to sit for an hour and to do all these exercises, all those things take time, is I'll say, pick an activity, any activity that you're already doing in your daily life. And that might be brushing your teeth, it might be showering, it might be tying your shoes before getting on the court, and make that as like mindful as you can. So that just means engaging all 5 senses. Like usually we do so many things on autopilot. Like, I don't know, Pete, if you're going to tell me about what was the experience like when you brushed your teeth this morning, are you going to be able to describe it in 5 minutes? Or is it going to be like, I don't know, I just like brushed my teeth. So we tend to go through a lot of things, and then that translates to the tennis court where we're not aware. We're very much in our heads, out of our body. So the practice of being mindful is about getting more connected. It's about syncing the mind and body together. And then over time, like when I started just picking one activity to do mindfully in the day, I actually keep coming back to it. And then I'll be like, I haven't done anything for a few days. Like it inspires you to want to do more exercises. And then maybe that, acronym of SCORE that I mentioned, maybe that inspires you, or picking, like just taking even like 3 times a day, taking 3 deep diaphragmatic breaths. That can be amazingly powerful. So it doesn't have to be a lot, but it's just starting somewhere and then getting the taste for it and getting more and more inspired. And I mean, if eventually it means, you're feeling inspired that you want to do 20 minutes of just sitting and taking deep breaths and integrating some visualizations, that's great, but it's not where you have to start. It's just about what you want to do. But yeah, the mind is something to be trained, just like you're working on your forehand and your serve, and you have to get out there with all the buckets of balls, and we're not expecting a magic fix. But what's cool about it is if you are taking the time to train the mind, it's not just that you have the benefit of becoming mentally strong, but it'll translate to all areas of your game. So if you're getting more, training your mind to be more in that flow state, more connected to your body, to recognize when you're in that fist clenched, like fight or flight state, you'll be able to relax quicker. You'll be able to break out of those, bad cycles of choking sooner, and to hit more powerful shots, to have more fun, to be more relaxed.
Yeah, that's good stuff. A couple of stories off in my head, and I think that these are good examples of mindfulness. Do you have our live stream on? Because I'm hearing an echo. Or maybe that's just the computer.
Yeah, I don't hear an echo on my side, but
all right. So anyway, guys, let me know if you hear an echo as I'm talking, because I hear an echo when I'm talking, which is just super annoying. But anyway, I'm just going to go for it anyway. So a couple of great examples that Rod Laver told me a story about his coach who would have him, they were in a boat fishing, and he would say, I want you to picture yourself at Wimbledon, like right now, like let's go there and picture yourself winning Wimbledon. And John Newcomb would tell me that he would go before a big match, he would actually go to center court Wimbledon. He'd just sit there and play the entire match in his head before the match. So these were great exercises. These were mindfulness exercises, I think, right? Before it became like such a catchphrase. And the idea that these great champions would basically say, I put myself in this situation so that when I'm actually there, I've been there before. And I think that this is a great thing that people can do. One thing I like to do as a kid, it's kind of interesting how you change over time. As a kid, if I played a good match, as I went to sleep, I used to like replay, and it wasn't anything that like any coach told me to do. I used to replay the great shots in my mind as I was going to sleep, just because it was fun. I wanted to relive those moments and play them in my head and feel good about it. And that's what I love tennis. As you get older, you kind of just go home and you replay all the bad shots in your head, and you call yourself an idiot. And but what do you think about that? And some people said they do see the echo. The echo is getting worse. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
And I also could try earphones. Maybe that.
No, you're fine. I think it's just me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I totally resonate with that. Like what some of the exercises, it's tough when you just say, oh yeah, it's just super simple. Just practice SCORE during your match. But when you actually get into your match and into this really high stress situation, you're not thinking about, let me pause my fight or flight response and take some deep breaths. So practicing that, if you can, through almost these guided visualizations. So what I'll have people do, and it's just something very simple that you can do and just take a few minutes to do, is bring to mind a recent stressful experience. So maybe this was the last match where you were down, love 3 or whatever that was bringing up these stressful situations. And then it's almost like you're rewriting history, because you then start to go through, hey, what would I actually have wanted to do? So instead of maybe you just kind of kept feeling tight and anxious through the rest of the match, you're like, okay, wait a minute, stop. Let me connect. What does the tennis ball feel like when I hold it? What do the soles of my feet feel like? Let me take a few deep breaths, observing just the thoughts going through my mind. The idea isn't to get rid of the anxious thoughts. It's just to notice them, like almost like you would a third party observer, like, oh, that's interesting. My mind's having some anxious, pretty self-defeating thoughts, huh? And you're observing that non-judgmentally, ideally with a little bit of kindness, maybe some humor. And then you're able to choose how you want to respond. Maybe that's with a positive affirmation of, okay, let's go, I can do this. It's just whatever you can do to break out of that cycle of fight or flight response, the sooner the better. And yeah, visualizing, Pete, what you were mentioning of the positive visualizations, that's amazing too. I mean, that ties back in with what I was talking about rewriting your story in a positive way. So if you have your, let's say, maybe I'd recommend keeping it to, 10 or less, just because it can get overwhelming. 3 is a good number of just some key positive focus cues that you want to repeat often throughout the match between points. And you can go through that for a few minutes before your match, of this taking steady, deep breaths and, saying those affirmations to yourself. And if it's that you're getting tight on your forehand, you're really taking yourself through in your mind how you can relax and breathe through it. But yeah, it's helpful to have things like, I'm a big believer of anchors, because it's easy to just say, well, stop being anxious, or why are you breathing so tight? But it's really hard to get out of that. So having something that works for you, like I love the tennis ball, because it's like, we all like tennis balls because we're tennis players, and it's very tactile and you can touch it, and just going through the experience. I mean, it may even seem weird, but like, especially if it's a new can of balls, like you can smell the tennis ball. What does the tennis ball smell like? Or what does it sound like? It doesn't sound like anything, but just anything you can do to get you very grounded into the present moment and out of whatever racing thoughts were happening. That's the idea. You're getting back and anchored into your body.
Would you say and I won't talk very long because I got this echo going. Would you say with what Rafa does, I think the echo's gone. Would you say with what Rafa does that he's using anchoring techniques with all his crazy idiosyncrasies, like as he's taking his water bottle and twisting it into the ground? Are these anchoring techniques he's using? Is he even aware that he's doing that, or is just something he developed? What do you think? Without having Rafa here to ask him, I think they're definitely anchoring techniques. I don't know if he developed them very intentionally, like, let me find an anchor to help me refocus, or if he developed that, subconsciously and then kept doing it. I mean, either way, like, the thing is, like, Pete, you're probably using anchoring techniques in your practices and matches, whether you know about it or not. Like, we all do it in some capacity or another. It's just the more intentionality you can create around it, the better the chances that you'll do it in a positive way the next time you're in a stressful situation, to help you get back into that focused, relaxed state. Yeah, so I guess there can be negative anchoring techniques too, like, slapping your thigh when you're mad. Instead of like a positive let's go, you might like miss a shot, or God forbid you're like Usni, who took his racket and bashed it over his head. I guess these would be negative anchoring techniques. Would you say so? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, look, the mind's very powerful and habits are very powerful. So it's kind of like you might have negative thoughts repeating. You could also have negative anchors that you're not aware of. And that's why it's important to develop positive anchors and to do them throughout the day, and especially in practices, because if the first time you try using your anchor or taking deep breaths or practicing score or whatever else is in a tiebreaker in a third set, it's not going to turn out very well, because it's a way too stressful situation to be able to do it for the first time. But if you've been practicing it, just like if you're trying to change your grip on your serve, and the first time you're trying to do that is during the match, that's not going to work. But if you've been practicing it for months and practice and some practice matches, then when you get to your match, you'll actually have a good chance of doing it well.
Okay, cool. All right, I've got a little bit of a challenging, how do I say it? Anyway, I'll just give you the example and let me know what you think about this, because I think it's important. I think you have examples on both sides where, I think Rafa's very good at, staying positive, and he's into the process, and he talks about that a lot after his matches, and like one of the things that I love that he said is, he had million break points and he doesn't break. And he just said, like, I just keep accepting and I just keep fighting. Like, he's got a lot of mantras, and it sounds like, he's got that. Then you have other great performers who almost fuel themselves on negativity, but they're like amazing champions. And a lot of champions have said things like, I like winning, but I hate losing even more. And like when I lose, I just am so brutal to myself. I'm so driven by not losing that's kind of what makes me a winner. Like, what do you think? Like, if you had somebody that you were working with and you noticed that, like I would say Serena, I mean, she's positive, but then, I mean, I've also seen, like, there's a video where I think she's like in practice and she hits for 5 minutes and she's not happy with it. And she like bashes her racket, smashes it, and just leaves the court, And so you do have examples of great performers being extremely negative, but that's kind of what drives them. Like my girlfriend who's a doctor, she's extremely mentally tough, but she's also extremely negative. It's like the worst thing that she hates to experience, oh my gosh, this sounds terrible, is if she does something, a bad thing at work, that will eat her up for like a month straight to not make a mistake. What do you think about that?
So, I mean, I would say, and this might be, the people who are using these types of the more of the negative energy as fuel. I'm not saying that can't work, but I would question them on how much better could they be if they had more positive fuel. So I'm a big believer in constructive feedback and also evaluating yourself from a critical perspective. Like if all you're saying to yourself, I think the trick is like mindfulness or positivity or affirmations. Like, these aren't just saying like, oh wow, I hit this really bad forehand 3 times in a row, it's okay, like I did great. It's being aware that, yeah, I didn't do that great on that forehand, but dwelling on it and beating myself up isn't going to help me get better, because as long as if I'm getting sucked into that cycle of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how bad that forehand was, and then that's what I'm thinking about the rest of the match. I mean, if you're one of those people that can be having that negative cycle going on in your head and then still go and play amazing, relaxed tennis, that's awesome. I'm not one of those people. And what I found is most people do better when they replace that critical self-talk with something a little bit more friendly and compassionate and positive, and being aware of like, yeah, that wasn't great, and what can I do to improve? But, mindfulness really has nothing to do with positivity or negativity. It just has to do with having an awareness of what's going on in the present moment. So, if you messed up a shot and your immediate reaction then is like, yeah, that wasn't great, that's fine. If you're still having that wasn't great thought throughout the rest of the match and it's impacting how you're playing, you're not actually in the present moment. So, Pete, I would wonder if some of these people who are having the more critical voices, at least to our outside perceptions, is that critical voice going on for them at all times? Or like when they're in the big points, have they put that aside and then they're back in the present moment in that strong mind-body connection? Because that's what it's about. It's about being in the here and now and knowing what's going on. And that's how you get in that flow and zone state.
Yeah, I think that was amazing stuff. I think what you're saying is all these players that we're talking about, and even my girlfriend who works in a very high pressure situation on a daily basis, I think that negative thought snaps them into mindfulness in some way. Because like you said, mindfulness doesn't have to be positive or negative. It's being very aware of the situation and then being able to get focused and focus on what needs to be done and basically be very aware of what you're doing. So I think a lot of times that negativity, even though we don't want to coach negativity, can sometimes spring certain individuals into being very focused, very aware of what they're doing, and channel in a lot of energy that they need to do to get the job done, which is not necessarily just always positive flowers and roses, but they're able to tap into something that a lot of people don't seem to be able to do. Is this something that is a gift that they have? Do you believe that some people just have a gift for this? And do you think that some people don't have a gift for this and they can't get it? Or, do you think some people have to work harder at it? Or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think everyone has the capability to develop mindfulness and this ability to be in the present moment. I think it's harder for some people than others. Just if you look across the population, some people have more tendencies towards anxiety, which is not mindful because you're getting very much in the past or in the future. And I think the difference, and I don't personally like the word negativity, but if you made a mistake and you have a split second, come on, it's a constructive criticism against yourself. And then the next moment you refocus. There's a big difference between that and you made a mistake. And then it's you've gone off the cycle of that negative self-worth of oh my gosh, I'm a horrible tennis player. I should quit. I'm not picking up a racket again. And it's created this downward cycle. So it probably depends on the person. But yeah, I think people have different propensities for it. One of my favorite stories, it's off the tennis court, but I always have 20 million thoughts going on at once. So the reason that I got into mindfulness is because I'm naturally not very mindful and I really need it. And I was asking a friend, I think I just had shared a bunch of thoughts and I was like, what are you thinking right now? And I was expecting her to share all of these things. And she was like, that's a really pretty blue of that couch. I like that. And I was like, wait, is that all you're thinking about? Surely there's got to be more layers of things. So I think it depends on the person. And I think some people are naturally very good at being in the present moment, whether that's just how they were born or skills that they developed as a child or through adulthood, who knows? But yeah, I'm a firm believer that anyone can develop these skills through practice. I think it's just developing a powerful forehand or some people might be a natural athlete and they pick up tennis and these physical skills very quickly. And then other people have to work hard for it. So I was also not a natural athlete and I had to work very hard for my tennis skills. But it doesn't mean that, if you're not natural at mindfulness or tennis skills that you can't develop them. It just means that you work at them.
Very good. I totally agree. One person, William Peck, great question. He says, how do we get our doubles partners to get back to the present? Can you improve your mindfulness so you can kind of tap into someone else's energy and bring them out of a rut or connect with them in some way? What are some tools we can use, whether it's body language, whether it's an actual thing we can say to somebody to kind of bring them back, get them positive, get them focused and on the same page? Or do you just focus on yourself and do the best you can yourself and be the best version of yourself and hope that they can get their act together? What do you think?
So I think a combination of both. Certainly the energy that you bring to the table, if you're being very mindful and bringing a really good energy, that's going to be contagious versus if you're moping and down and just that's going to bring your doubles partner's energy down. But I think another component of it, and this, might be even one of these training things that starts off the court that centers around mindful communication. A lot of times when we're talking, and I know I'm guilty of this, is I might be talking a lot and I'm not listening very well. So I really like this acronym called WAIT that stands for why am I talking? So, it might be just reframing it and instead of looking at why is my doubles partner down and saying these things, like, it might just start with asking them, hey, what's going on for you right now? Like, how can I help or be supportive? And maybe trying, a fun exercise. If you want to try that with your doubles partner off the court before getting on the match, is just get them to share whatever they want to share about their doubles game, their tennis, their anxieties, their inspirations for 5 minutes. And then you just have to listen. You can't talk while they're talking, and you both trade off. So it's developing these mindful communication skills. And I think it's just about, just like if you're training your own, mental awareness and mind-body connection and mindfulness, finding ways to bring your doubles partner into that practice, maybe sharing some of the mindfulness tools you're practicing. And like, especially anchors is another great one, because like if you're doing, say, a certain anchor between points, like, maybe you've got your racket and you're twirling it once, or you're just feeling your grip, or it might be something you share with them and encourage them to develop their own anchors, or it's an anchor that you both can practice together.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I thought of a couple of things. Number one, the Bryan brothers. I mean, look at all the rituals that they've done to be connected. Not only are they twins, but they do actually physical, the chest bump. If you watch them get ready to return serve, they're both, and again, my girlfriend noticed this. We went to go watch them in an exhibition, and they're both moving their feet at the same time, and then they both land at the same time. So they've got like this real, what feels like to be a spiritual connection. You can tell it's mental and physical. It's just not a mental thing, but they're actually doing a lot of physical similarities and rituals together. And I think another thing too that you can help your doubles partner with, this communication is key. I think the talk before a match is super important, and to just, again, probe in a nice, non-threatening way what they like about their game, what they don't like about their game, and to really, when you see your doubles partner disconnect from you, to really understand, why is this happening? I think some people, when they play doubles, they get mad at themselves, like it's all about them, and they're just PO'd that they're not performing the way they want. I think a lot of doubles people, when they don't play well, now all of a sudden they get super anxiety, because like, now not only am I letting me down, I'm letting my partner down. Like, this is super embarrassing. Now I'm letting my entire team down. Like, I just want to hide under something right now and just like end it. I don't even want to play tennis anymore. This is so bad, because now I'm just letting everybody down around me. And I think if you can tap into that, like, are they just mad at themselves? Or are they not only mad at themselves, they're embarrassed, and to really let them know that, hey, we're out here to have fun. It doesn't matter. I make mistakes too. Like, it's okay. It's like, keep shooting the ball, because you need, I think one of the things I've noticed on teams that don't go well is the better player taps into the insecurity of the player who's not quite there where they are physically or mentally, and they try and take over everything. And that rarely goes well, because now you need your player. Your player is going to have to make some big shot at some point. This is what Michael Jordan realized too. He couldn't win a championship until he realized other players need to make the big shots too. He can't make them all the time. He lost year after year until he realized, I got to trust my team with this triangle offense. They completely changed the offense from like basically being like, Dan Marino is going to throw the ball 40 times a game, and Allen Iverson's going to control the ball for 23 out of 24 seconds on the shot clock, to like, we got to run a triangle offense where everybody's touching the ball. And so if you're going to be a good team, you need to understand that they've got to make some big shots, and you're going to need them to make the big shots. And you got to build up their confidence rather than say, don't worry about it. I can see your confidence down, and like, I'm much better. You just stand over there and I'll take over. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. I mean, what it was bringing to mind also is, well, even going back to what we were talking about positivity versus negativity, and it becomes, I think, an even bigger conversation point among teams. So, if you're setting an example of beating yourself up after points, of like, oh my gosh, Kalindi, like, how could I miss that? That's just so horrible. And then your doubles partner sees you doing that, it's going to bring up, Pete, what you were saying, like, wow, if I miss, they're going to think that I'm a horrible player, and they're not going to want to play with me. And that just gets them more into that like frozen state, versus if you're cultivating in your team an attitude of, I'm going to use a word that a lot of tennis players now, might be thinking, what's that word having to do in tennis? Compassion. But it's actually it's a very interesting word. There's a whole field of study called mindful self-compassion, with a lot of science behind it, of just kind of like mindfulness, showing the tremendous effects that it has on improved focus, performance, well-being, getting in that flow and zone state. And all it really means is, if you or your doubles partner makes a mistake, it's not saying, oh yeah, it's okay, sunshine and daisies and roses. It's saying, you know what, like, everyone has a hard time. Everyone gets anxious. We're all working on it. It's okay. Like, you're still like my awesome doubles partner, and we got this. Let's just try again. So it's the difference between being like, yeah, that's fine to miss 7 forehands in a row. Like, that's cool. No worries. Keep doing that. And saying like, just, it's hard. Like, I've done that before. I really like this. It's a short little exercise called a self-compassion break. And it can be done in literally like less than 10 seconds. Like, I've done it even like in between points, or definitely on a changeover that you can do it with your partner, where it's essentially saying, the first step is just acknowledging that, hey, this is like a stressful moment. Like, we're getting a little bit stressed and tight, maybe one or both. Bringing it into a broader perspective, like remembering that, hey, we're not the only doubles team that's going through this. Like, even the Bryan brothers have had moments that they've had a hard time and they've choked a little bit. And then finally doing something that is being a little bit kind to yourself and to your doubles partner. And it might just even be, a little bit of a fist bump, or, bumping rackets together, or maybe even a chest bump, or just something that's like, hey, we got this, we're coming back together. It's like an anchoring, grounding, soothing kind of action. And once again, it's all about getting out of that fight, flight, freeze response, and getting back into the present moment so that there can be focus and productivity around it.
Very cool. Very cool. Here's a great question. And this is my man from India. How do you deal with bad calls and intentionally provoked by the opponent, especially at the junior level? Great question. How do you deal with that? That's like I hate when people hook me. I will kill you. Like, how do you deal with that?
So, that aspect of it, and yeah, nothing like something like that to evoke because, when we're talking about fight, flight, freeze response, which that's probably evoking the fight response, like you were saying, I can see, Pete, you are really getting ready to start fighting with that opponent with the bad calls. That response happened because our, caveman ancestors were busy running away from mountain lions. It can be a useful response, but I think that's just where it's like, maybe it's letting yourself have that split second. Like I'm frustrated with that. And then just, noticing, oh, okay, I'm frustrated with that, but can you control it? If you can't control it, let it go or do something about it. Dwelling on it, getting sucked into it, getting mad and letting it affect you, not helpful. So the self-compassion break is great there because you're like, this is so frustrating. There's not much I can do about it. So many people deal with this. What can I do to be, that can be helpful to me? Maybe that's taking some deep breaths. A great thing that I love to do that a lot of tennis players probably already do, even subconsciously, is just like bouncing on your toes, doing a little dance for a second, anything you can do to get yourself, like if you even, I'll go out of the screen if I do it, but even just like bouncing around for a second, anything to get out of the state that's just like ready to run across the net and punch your opponent. Or of course, taking productive action is a great one, but making sure it's just intentional and that you're just doing it and then you're getting refocused, like calling an umpire or a linesman if it's getting really bad. But it's just focusing on what you can control instead of getting sucked into the energy that the opponent's creating, which is just all they're trying to do. They're trying to distract you so that you lose focus, and that's not going to help you.
Yeah, exactly. Tanya, who is amazing, she said, can you recap score?
Yeah, of course. So SCORE stands for, the first one is stop. So stop is we're stopping or pausing that amygdala fight, flight, or freeze response, because usually we get really reactive when something stressful happens and we want to immediately do something, like, Pete was going to run across the net and punch his opponent. So we're stopping that action. And then we're connecting to something grounding, like an anchor, like the soles of the feet, taking a few slow breaths, a few slow steps, maybe holding onto your tennis ball or your grip, engaging all your senses. Once you've connected, we move on to the O in SCORE, and we're observing thoughts, observing the emotions, observing physical sensations. Often when we are in this kind of a stress state, we are not noticing how tight we are, but once we stop and notice how tight we are, it's like, oh my gosh, like I've been walking around all match with my fist clenched, and no wonder I haven't been having much power on my forehand. And then once you've gone through stop, connect, observe, you get to choose how you want to respond. And it's a very intentional prefrontal cortex intelligent response. And sometimes the response is doing nothing or taking a few breaths, or, in the case of the bad line call in junior tennis, the response might be choosing to call an umpire, but it's making sure that whatever the response is, it's a response that's mindful, intentional, and not reactive. And also, Tanya, Pete can share my email after this, and I'm happy to send anyone like the written out versions of the acronyms or answer any other questions.
Yeah, I think you should have a chat thing, and you can put your email in there for people if you could do that.
Okay, yeah. Is that just in the, let's see, live comments?
Yeah, live comments. You can chat it up there. This was really, really awesome. That was so great. Do you guys have any more questions? Because it was a lot of fun today. Do you have anything you'd like to kind of share with people that we haven't covered yet?
Yeah, I think if maybe not to go through a whole long version, but if people are interested, and you're interested, Pete, I could share a couple of exercises that people could take home. And then again, if you email me, I can go into it in more depth, but they're like two of my favorite starting exercises if people are wanting to do something for just a few minutes, say before their.
Let's do it.
So the first one is it's really helpful in developing that mind-body connection, and it's called a body scan. And so what you would do, and you can do this seated, or it's a nice one to do lying down. It can be done even like first thing in the morning or before bed. And you're taking a nice seat, and you can close the eyes if you feel comfortable, exhaling, letting all the air out, maybe for a count of 6, just slowing things down. Then allowing that inhale just to arise naturally, letting go of anything that happened before this moment, anything that may happen after, arriving in the here and now, and just beginning to scan your body from the crown of your head all the way to the tips of your toes, just stopping at your face and relaxing your face and jaw and neck, and allowing shoulders to release, allowing your back to melt and soften, allowing belly, hips, legs to be easy, allowing your feet to be soft, and just noticing any sensations in the body without judgment, knowing if the mind wanders, that's okay. Just gently bring it back to the breath. And then as you're ready, you can open your eyes again. So that was a very, very short, that probably took like 20 seconds. So that was just a little taste, but it's cool because it's something you really could do it. I do a body scan before I do any fitness or stretching exercises, because I want to know what I'm actually doing. And it can help prevent injuries if you're connected in with what's going on. That's the other cool piece about mindfulness. It actually ties in with injury prevention, and I like to call it being bodyful and aware of what's going on. The second and last little exercise
I got a question for you. As I did that, and I know this is about myself, as I did that, I could relax almost everything, but my shoulders are so tight. This is where I hold all my nerves and stress. Like, once I notice that this is where the tension is and I'm breathing, but I keep breathing and I feel relaxed. I feel, I don't feel stressed out, but I hold the nerves in my shoulders and it just doesn't go away. Like once I scan my body and I notice, okay, like my shoulders are like on fire with nerves. What can I do to then, it seems like the harder I focus on it, the more nervous I get. Like the more I keep feeling like, oh my gosh, you're so tight in your shoulders. And I start thinking, how can I relax this? Why won't they relax? Like, how can I get that to just, like even doing this, it's like it feels better, but I still feel it tight there. Like, what can I do?
Okay, so 2 parts to that. One, in the longer version of this meditation, I probably would have said something like, if you notice any areas of tension, it's okay. You don't have to try and get rid of them. Just notice it, ideally with a non-judgmental attitude, even with kindness. Maybe you're just sending an extra breath there of ease and relaxation. So, the goal with mindfulness, like it's not to get rid of the negative feelings, whether they're physical or mental, it's just to be aware of them. So I would actually say, great, you just identified a spot that you need to work on. So that's kind of why I like to do this before doing any stretching or exercising. Like imagine if you had all of this tension in your shoulders and let's say then you jumped on the tennis court without a proper warm up or stretching and you tweaked something because it was that tight. So I would say, Pete, and this is a great homemade tool that you could make yourself. This is 6 tennis balls and a tube sock. So I would say, go ahead and make yourself one of these, and then you just like put it over your shoulder and you can lie down and work on that. So that would be, it's okay not to get rid of it. The goal is not to get rid of that sensation of tension. It's just to become more comfortable. If you did this for a 20-minute meditation and you're noticing that tension in your shoulders the whole time, it's just to get more comfortable being okay with that sensation and taking your body into a greater awareness. Like I think the more you develop also the ability to focus on the breath, that deep breathing practice will help. And at the very least, it sounds like what was happening is you were starting to get anxious about the tension. So what happens a lot of times with pain, and it's cool because the scientific studies show that with mindfulness, it can actually reduce, like when people did it in long-term studies in very specific ways, like people with chronic pain, it significantly decreased their pain rating, similar to taking certain pain medications. Because what's happening is that a lot of times the pain that we're experiencing, the first layer is just the actual pain, the tension in your shoulders. But usually we're not just feeling that first layer of pain, we're feeling 10 layers beyond that because we get anxious about the pain. And then we get anxious about being anxious about the pain. So the more we can just develop that ability just to be okay with it, same with nerves in a tennis match, like, okay, I'm feeling nervous. That's cool. I don't need to be panicked about it. It's just acknowledging it and then moving forward or taking actions around it, such as getting a nice shoulder massage or self-massage or whatever that may be.
Very, very cool. Good stuff. Bring us to our next exercise.
Okay, so this next one is one of my favorites because it addresses one of the top meditation myth busters, especially when I talk to athletes about meditating, even like if it's before their matches, like even on the tournament site. The biggest thing I have is it's really noisy and loud and there's matches going on and people talking. I can't meditate there. I need a quiet space. So this meditation is about bringing in the sounds in the environment into the mindfulness exercise. And so again, this could be a longer version. I'll just take you through a very short variation just so you can get the general idea, but then I'm happy to send anyone the script that goes with it or answer any questions later on. So once again, just finding a nice comfortable seat, taking a deep exhale, letting all the air out, nice and slow, allowing that inhale to arise naturally, shutting down the eyes if that feels comfortable to you. Letting go of any tension as much as you can and just noticing what's in the body. If there are any areas of tension, not worrying about them, just knowing that that's okay, taking note with a non-judgmental attitude. Breathing in slowly and deeply, and then letting out the breath slowly. And as you breathe out, noticing that natural feeling of releasing a little more with each out breath. Simply letting go. And when you're ready, bring your awareness to the sounds that are present in this moment. Without searching for sounds, let them come to you and fill your ears while simply hearing sounds near and far away. This is pure listening. These may be sounds inside the room, outside the room, inside your own body. Noticing any judgments or thoughts about the sounds, and let them pass away. Noticing if you find yourself trying to identify or label the sounds, and instead focus on hearing the bare sounds themselves. Noticing if the mind has moved to judgments like, I like this sound, or I don't like that sound. And seeing if you can allow yourself to continue hearing regardless of any present likes or dislikes. Letting the sounds come and go. Now, for a few moments, listening to the gentle sound of your own breathing, allowing your breath to take up whatever rhythm feels natural for you at the moment. And then wiggling fingers and toes and opening the eyes if they were closed and returning back to your surroundings. So that was just a very simple exercise, and it's something that you can do for 20 minutes or longer, or just a few seconds, especially if you're feeling like you're trying to focus and you're feeling all of these distracting noises, just making them a part of your mindfulness. That's what's cool. I mentioned at the beginning, like my first thing, if someone asks me, how do I start practicing mindfulness? I'm just picking one thing in your daily life. The idea with these mindfulness practices, ultimately the goal is that we just live life mindful, because we're aware of what's happening in the moment and we're not on autopilot in our lives, on or off the court. And that's what enables us to have more joy, more focus, we're having more fun, we're hitting more powerful ground strokes. And yeah, it's the practice of it all, but it's an ongoing journey, probably a lifetime one.
Very cool. That was great. Brad says great. I'm going to try and keep my voice down to the minimum because I have like the worst sound today. But I want to show, and I'll let you talk about it. I'd love to talk about it, but I can't because I'm super annoying right now. So I'm going to share my screen on what we're doing together with our summer camp and how on-court, off-court is really cool. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so let me do that. And let's see. Can you see that, Kalindi?
Yes, I can.
All right, talk us through this and tell everybody a little bit about on-court, off-court.
Okay, so, for those of you who don't know me, and you may have met my dad a couple of weeks ago when he did one of these live webinars with Pete on the continental grip. I come from a tennis family. My dad's been a coach for years, and basically our company started because he was trying to help his students to learn faster. It's really also coming back to that mind-body connection and kinesthetic and visual learning, and how can we make learning more fun and more effortless. And that's where on-court, off-court started now 26 years ago. And I was the guinea pig growing up. When I was playing, I got to try on all of these kinesthetic gadgets and training aids. And I have my favorites. That would be a topic for another live webinar. But what's cool about them and how it ties in with what Pete is doing is Pete's doing this awesome online summer camp idea. Usually now is starting to be the time when kids are going to their summer camps, and we're usually sharing like, hey, here's, equipment for coaches to get for any summer camps that they might be doing. But obviously right now it's a little bit hit or miss on if summer camps are even going to be going on, if they're safe to send your kids to. So what Pete's doing is creating online summer camps, and we thought it was an awesome idea. So we put together some of our top favorite kids equipment that I thought would work really well for home practice. And then anyone who does Pete summer camps, they get a lovely coupon code, Camps with Pete. and then they get to use that on any of the products in this section to help them work with their at-home training equipment. And I know Emma Doyle, who's an awesome friend and longtime supporter of On-Court Off-Court as well, she just did a bunch of cool videos using some of the equipment and really creative ideas. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I know, Pete, you have your echo, but anything else to share on that?
Yes, I do. If you have, even if your kids are all grown up, tell your kids to tell their kids. And I need all the help we can get. We need all the help we can get spreading this word out. And my God, my son is terrible. But you can go to onlinesummercampswithpete.com and check it out. And I just really need so much help spreading this. I believe this is going to be so awesome for our kids this summer. So I just encourage you to do that. But I can't talk as I want because I'm super annoying. Oh my God.
Well, and I forgot to mention too that Pete's doing 3 free days actually right around my birthday. So cool timing on that, Pete. I think May 27th, 28th, and 29th, just to, no harm in just trying it out. And yeah, feel free to, ask any questions about summer camps or about mindfulness. I also have a blog subsidiary that's listed somewhere on On-Court Off-Court, but mindfulkalindi.com, that just has some different blog articles about mindfulness. And really, to me, it all ties together. I also really love that, Pete, you're doing a mindset portion of your summer camps that's, bringing these concepts. Like, I wish I'd known about these concepts of mindfulness when I was a junior, when I was, 10, 11, 12, or even younger than that. So I think that's like really, really awesome that you're bringing that to your online camps, and it's going to be really cool. I mean, I'm excited to try it out myself. And yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I mean, hey, that's a big part of I didn't talk about that so much today, but a big part of mindfulness, it's this concept of the beginner's mind and just being like a kid. So I think the more we can bring out that energy, encourage our kids to be like kids, and be like kids ourselves, that'll bring more joy and fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I know you got a busy day, and I sound like Darth Vader, so we're gonna end this.
Well, thank you so much, Pete, and thank you to everyone. I hope everyone has a great day. And any questions, feel free to reach out at any point to Pete or I.
Okay, take care, you guys.
Bye.